Hello, John Coburn's my name. I'm the National President for the Australian Muay Thai Federation and the International Vice President. I'm here today with Tom Hunter of the Boxing and Martial Arts Advisory Committee attached to the South Australian Government. It's important for people within Australia to understand that the government in certain states has a role with our sport, and for that purpose I'm here with Tom to let him explain generally how the martial arts industry interfaces with government. And I should add too that Tom's been an absolute pleasure to deal with in terms of the sport interfacing with government. Tom, could you just tell us a little bit about your role as registrar for the board here, and also how the martial arts boards across Australia operate?
Sure, John. My position in South Australia is I'm the Boxing and Martial Arts Compliance Officer, and that falls directly under the Office for Recreation and Sport. Back in 2002, the South Australian Government created legislation controlling boxing and martial arts in South Australia. That's known as the Boxing and Martial Arts Act. As you'd be aware, John, once you have an Act of Parliament, then you need to ensure that we have someone in place to ensure compliance with that Act and the attending regulations. Our Act covers all boxing and martial arts in South Australia as designated by the Act. In South Australia, I'm also the Executive Officer of the Boxing and Martial Arts Advisory Committee, and also the Executive Officer of the Boxing and Martial Arts Advisory Committee's Medical Advisory Panel. Our advisory committee is just that. It's an advisory committee to government through the Office of Recreation and Sport, and comprises of various individuals from a number of areas within sport, and including martial arts, including boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and elite training, taekwondo, and a number of other areas, John. In essence, we cover the fighters, promoters, events in South Australia, and the other states in Australia have various types of regulatory bodies slightly different to South Australia. In Victoria, they have a professional boxing combat board, and they primarily deal with professionals only, as is the case in Western Australia and some of the other states. Queensland and Northern Territory don't have any regulatory bodies at all governing them at the moment, but I believe Queensland might be looking at it in the near future.
Yeah, Queensland, just for the people who are interested, there's a position paper out at the moment seeking views from the public and stakeholders as to whether it's appropriate to have a statutory control body in place as well. Thanks, Tom. Now, your role in terms of our interface, say, with our trainers and athletes, is to do with blood testing, appropriate registration. Do you want to just talk us through what you would do
Sure.
preliminary to a show,
Sure.
in the lead up to a show?
Sure, just to expand on that, the legislation is concerned primarily for the welfare of the fighters. So that means that we have to ensure, and it's part of my responsibility to ensure that things like medical examinations, blood testing is performed prior to fighters can register, and prior to bouts going on in South Australia. In addition to that, also we have medical examinations annually prior to each fight, and then immediately after each fight as well, before the fighter leaves the venue. Now, here in South Australia also, it's a little bit unique because we also require fighters to have an MRI, a scan of the brain, prior to being registered. There can be an exclusion from that, primarily for amateurs, where if a fighter is in an amateur contest and is wearing headgear and shin guards, then they can be excluded from the MRI. But the minute someone wants to take any headgear off, they must have had an MRI to ensure that there's no underlying abnormalities within the brain. and that MRI must be they must undergo the MRI every 3 years. And of course as well, John, in addition to that, if a doctor feels at any stage the fighter needs a further MRI because of a serious knockout, he can again order that in between the 3 year period as well. Now, other states have looked at the MRI issue, and for their own reasons they've decided not to go ahead with it. Here in South Australia it's mandatory, and that includes not only for fighters in South Australia, but also any interstate fighters that come over here. They have to have an MRI before they're allowed to compete.
Now that is an important issue for the trainers who might be looking at this, that don't lob up in South Australia and expect your athletes to compete without the appropriate testings for MRI and blood tests. It's not going to happen, and in fact you'll probably end up being disciplined by us as the sporting control body for having bringing the sport into disrepute by not complying with what's been well known and long-standing obligations upon you. Now perhaps Tom, you can just talk a little bit about the issues with our rules. There seems to be confusion sometimes expressed that the government looks to change the rules or interfere with our rules, but that's not really the case at all, is it?
No, not at all, John. Whether it be Muay Thai or any other martial art, the procedure for the legislative requirements is simply that prior to any event occurring in South Australia, those rules must be approved by the Minister. Now, whether it be Muay Thai or kickboxing or karate, what simply happens is the sets of rules are sent to us or and asked for approval, seeking approval. Those rules are then examined by myself, the Boxing Martial Arts Advisory Committee, and then from that the Advisory Committee then makes recommendations to the Minister in relation to particular rules. In the case of Muay Thai, we have assessed the rules and we've made recommendations to the Minister, and following those recommendations the Minister elects to approve the WMC rules in their entirety. That then does mean to say that everyone has to use full Muay Thai rules. Then if they elect to use modified Muay Thai rules for some of the younger fighters or the more novice fighters, and elect not to use elbows or variations like that, then we're quite happy for that to occur as well. With Muay Thai, we have looked at the entire rules, and we've discussed it at great length in relation with the committee, and we have here in South Australia elect to use full Muay Thai rules, and we've had very few injuries here in South Australia in relation to Muay Thai. You will get occasional cuts and bruises, but no more than any that you would see in any other combat sports such as boxing or kickboxing.
Well, thanks, Tom. I hope this has been useful for the people to understand how our sport and government interfaces. We do our best to ensure we have a good working relationship with all the state governments. Sometimes it can be a little awkward depending on personalities, to do with promoters wanting to do things, and the world's not perfect, we all do our best, but wherever possible, the trainers, promoters, athletes, you must ensure in advance you're compliant with whatever state's rules are in place. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, John. You're welcome.